Recognise these songs? If you don't, you're probably in the minority. This is music from the most successful album of the year so far.
This is the greatest show. This is the greatest show.
The soundtrack to The Greatest Showman's being sung in showers, cars, and on stage in schools with a little encouragement from Hugh Jackman.
This is the greatest show.
Hi everybody at Mitten Manor Primary School in Gloucester. It's Hugh Jackman here. I'm so sorry I can't be there with you because I've heard that you guys are preparing for a special performance of The Greatest Showman at the school assembly. You guys are going to crush it. You are going to rock it. You are going to be absolutely amazing because remember, life is what you choose to make it, and nobody made a difference by being like anybody else.
While the movie itself was panned by the critics, fans loved it.
Girls, I think I've had an
This
idea.
is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I
T-Bone,
drum.
at your service.
I'm not scared.
I am putting together a show, and I need a star. Every one of us is special. And nobody is like anyone else. That's the point of my show. Ready? Showtime.
The film was undeniably driven by the music, and further proof of that is the unexpected success of its soundtrack.
Never be enough. Never be enough.
It certainly seems like it's never enough, so we're asking The Greatest Showman, what's the fuss? The film made £325 million worldwide, and 46 of those millions right here in the UK. While that is a success story in itself, the soundtrack continues to break records and keep some of the biggest artists in the world off the top spots. Kanye West and Camila Cabello were both denied #1 albums by The Greatest Showman. The soundtrack is completely original and written by two fairly successful guys called Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, proud owners of an Oscar for City of Stars from La La Land.
City of stars, are you shining just for me?
They now have a Golden Globe for This Is Me from The Greatest Showman.
No one ever made a difference by being like everyone else.
When the film was released at the end of 2017, the critics were not impressed. One described it as a disjointed, glossy, sugar-coated mess. Another said it was empty, moronic, and completely forgettable. While The Telegraph said it was utterly bibbly, quack, insane. But that didn't put off the fans from coming. They still turned up in their droves, and in fact, they still are. And now they're singing along. I believe you're both super fans of The Greatest Showman.
Yes.
How many times have you seen it?
20.
20?
Yeah.
What's your favourite song from the film?
This is me.
And how often do you sing that, do you think?
Every day?
We bought the DVD about 4 weeks ago, and it's on every night. As soon as we come in from school, it's on.
What's your favourite song?
The Greatest Showman.
My favourite song is Never Enough, because I just can't get enough of it. Never enough.
Can you give us a blast?
Never enough, never.
For anyone who hasn't seen the film, The Greatest Showman is a musical loosely based on the life of P.T. Barnum. Now, he was a businessman, but also a creator of a travelling circus way back in 1871, and that was known as the greatest show on earth. Star of the film, Hugh Jackman, was so mad about it that while he wasn't being Wolverine, he spent nearly a decade trying to get this film made.
It was a dream for me, for all of us. Well, Zach's done it 4 times before, but to be in a movie musical is a dream, and it doesn't come along all that often.
Yeah.
And so we spent 7 years. We wanted to do something original music, and I think the music is phenomenal. And we wanted to tell the story of the guy who pretty much invented show business.
This was a real risk, making this movie. Musicals don't typically make money. They're very complicated. They are very financially punitive. You need a really big budget and need a lot of very technical people that aren't used in a lot of films. So it's a risk making a musical. Typically, we see musicals these days hidden in animated movies, which are already more likely to do well. So you can look at Moana, you can look at Frozen. Those are films that were probably going to do pretty well with the Disney umbrella over it. whatever. But a live action musical, La La Land was made for peanuts. They really skimped and saved. And the writers of those songs, Pasek and Paul, wrote the songs for The Greatest Showman, and in fact tried to make this movie for years and years and years. Their songs were actually written, I believe, before La La Land's songs were written. So to make a movie like this come to the big screen is an ordeal. So I don't see anyone thinking, I'll have another slice of that, because they'll realise how difficult it is pretty quickly.
While Kanye couldn't beat the mighty circus juggernaut, there are a few artists who have. Kylie Minogue, Arctic Monkeys, and...
I'll be completely honest, when it first happened, I didn't think it was that big a deal, because I'd kind of had been oblivious to, I'd been in my own world of, we're going to release an album, we're going to release an album, we're going to release an album. And everyone was going, you beat Greatest Showman. And I was like, well, yeah, that's cool, that's fine. And it just hasn't disappeared. And now I go, whoa, we beat the Greatest Showman. Like, that's incredible. Like, it's going to be the thing of 2018. Like, well, yeah, but did you beat Greatest Showman? And now I'm kind of like so happy with a number 2. You know, I would be happy anyway, but it's kind of like, it's as if number 1 doesn't exist anymore. That's just Greatest Showman. And 2's the new number 1.
What do you think it is about it? Like, have you listened to it?
I've listened to bits of it. I think, like, my sister was at a party with like a bunch of 27-year-old lads, and they were just putting it on incessantly. So I don't know what it is about the record, but you know they put MSG in some food to get you to eat it more. Is that what it is? I wonder if they've worked it out, the musical equivalent.
The soundtrack has been number 1 for 20 weeks now and is continuing to break records.
I think when it held on to the number 1 position for not just a month, but then a second month, it went into its 3rd month. I mean, it did 11 weeks consecutively at number 1 when it was first released. Now, that's the longest period unbroken at number 1 in the last 30 years, matched only by Adele's 21. So it's an extraordinary success. When you start seeing those records tumbling, for an album where you didn't really expect there to be any kind of records broken, that's when you realise that this is something extraordinary. I think it's here for the rest of the year. I think we're going to, certainly in the top 5, top 10, I think it's going to run through till Christmas. It's now had more weeks at number 1 than any soundtrack since the 1960s. So the albums that we remember, or certainly I remember, like, you know, Saturday Night Fever and Grease, those kinds of albums, it's usurped those, it's pushed those to one side, and it's now competing or starting to get into the realms of the really massive albums from the 1950s and 1960s like South Pacific. So this is going to be there certainly through to the end of the year at the top end of the charts. Whether it'll be number 1 for all that time, I don't think so, but it will be there and competing without a shadow of a doubt.
Well, there you have it. It doesn't look like Hugh Jackman and his circus will be leaving the charts anytime soon. And it could run on even further. Rumour has it that a live show is heading to Broadway in New York.
This is the greatest show.